Okay, I am in Disney's California Adventure Park. It is roasting today, but I'm going to take you through the park and just kind of sketch what I want to sketch and do a bit of urban sketching and I don't know, pull inspiration from what I'm seeing and take you along for the ride, I guess. So we'll see what we get up to. Steve's going to help me today, so that's nice.
Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche, we're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow, we can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free.
So we're gonna start at the Lamplight Lounge because we kind of just want to get out of the heat. And then we'll just get my sketch on down there and then hopefully brave the wilderness a little bit later. Just sketch around the park. Alrighty, I'm just going to jump into the voiceover and give you a few tips and tricks when it comes to sketching on location. The first one is pick a location. I know that sounds super obvious and kind of dumb for me to say that, but I do stress it as kind of important because it's ultimately what's going to feed all those parts of your creativity. So you want somewhere that really excites as many of your senses as you possibly could. For me, that's Disneyland, and I'm lucky enough to live close and be able to get there. For you, if you love to put your toes in the sand and smell the sea salt in the air and listen to the waves crashing, it sounds super obvious, but go and pick a nice beach and take your sketchbook to. If you love the smell of coffee and the taste of donuts, a nice cafe might be for you. It doesn't even have to be crazy or super far away. It could be a different room in your house, but just switching up your environment will really alter the way that you create and where your inspiration pulls from. So I would suggest being a little discerning about where you decide to go because it will ultimately affect what you do and how you do it. Once you've found a location, my second piece of advice would be to just ease yourself into it. I cannot stress enough how important that is, and I wish someone had told me when I first started. As with anything that is new to you or that you're learning, the last thing you want to do is kind of discourage yourself from the get-go. And with illustrating, it does take a hot minute for your wrist to realize what it's doing and to remember how to draw a circle and a curve. So I'll always recommend you do some practice doodles. You can see off to the left-hand side of the page there. I have pieces that I don't even finish. I just scribble around on the page and make sure that I'm ready to draw, and then set myself up with the right expectation to make sure that I know I'm going to learn today. It's okay to make some mistakes. Just go with it, be loose, be free, you're warmed up, you're ready to go, and make sure that I feel encouraged to keep going when I do approach these little hiccups that I have along the way. This is still relatively new to me. I'm still relatively new to environmental sketching and urban sketching and sketching on location, so I really do need to make sure that I remind myself a lot just to to ease in, give myself a little bit of grace, so that I can enjoy the process of learning and not be so filled with anxiety about it. So just ease yourself into it. Another thing to think about is that whilst you're in the right headspace, it's a great time to experiment. When you're learning things, generally you're a bit more lenient on yourself and you don't have that pressure of the expectation to get anything right. So in this headspace, I would encourage you to mix the mediums you've always thought about mixing, try the illustration technique you've thought about trying, maybe use a new brush pen that you've been afraid of like I'm doing. I've not been afraid of this one, but it is very difficult to control. So I thought this would be a great time to practice, because when the expectation is gone and you're just having fun, that's a great time to play. So once you've picked your location, you've eased yourself into it, you've had a bit of a play with some mediums and drawing things that you like to draw, I think that's when you're in the right space to start tackling your challenges.
I know we're here to work, but we're going to ride the Incredicoaster anyway, because why not?
Why not? I love it. It's so good. It's so good.
Okay, so I've caught my breath. We're going to go find somewhere to sit and de-glisten, get a drink, and sketch some more.
So my head's in the right space. I've got my location, I've been warmed up and practicing, I went on a roller coaster so my adrenaline is high, and I'm feeling pretty good to start. I know I'm in a good place to do this, but I'll just level with you. I am relatively new at this, if not completely beginner at urban sketching. I don't ever really work with perspective when I draw. Everything is usually on a flat plane and 2D illustration, and I'm completely fine with that. So this is always a big challenge for me, and the wine helped. Obviously not advocating that you drink. I was just having a fantastic summer day. It was really, really hot, but there was such a beautiful breeze in that shade. And this all became very indulgent once I had eliminated that pressure. So I do really want to stress to you again, ease yourself into it. Don't sit down and think I'm going to be here for the next 7 hours and I better get something great out of this. Don't even bother. Even if you set out to sketch a building and all you did was sit there and sketch faces in your journal, that is completely worthwhile too. Nothing is ever done in vain when you're learning. So I just want to encourage you to push beyond some of those triggering moments for you, the things that might cause you to quit, and try just a bunch of different things. This page turned out to be one of my favorites because I tried a bunch of different things I was seeing and being inspired by, and I just thought, you know what, it's okay if I fail this. People aren't going to care. No one's going to care. This isn't client work. This is just for me to learn. So I better try that stuff now before I go back home and don't have access to this mood and this current feeling. So I loved the post-it notes. I'm just going to leave you with that. I don't know why, but I just really enjoyed the addition of those post-it notes. The brown, the craft, the unbleached post-it notes, and the blue and white was just a beautiful color scheme and just totally did it for me. surprise of the day for me were these Tombow dual-ended brush markers. Now, I have the portrait set. They're a water-based marker, so they do go on a little streaky, but on this MD paper, they are divine. They go on so smooth. Like I said, a little bit streaky, but you can activate them with water and get a really nice watercolor texture with the ink. I think they're really great for urban sketching though, because they have a brush tip. They also have a bullet tip, which I'll be honest, I don't typically use, but the brush tip gives you a really fine line, but also a really wide line, which means you can block in a lot of your shadows, but also get the detail that you need when you're kind of sketching buildings and, you know, little details and etc, etc. But it brings me to my next tip. You can see here, before I add everything but the terracotta kitchen sink, I've got these shapes kind of blocked out, and what I'm doing here is grabbing the highlights and the shadows that I'm seeing. Some people will look at a building and think, how on earth am I supposed to draw that? And I found one thing that really helps me is if I look for the shapes that the shadows are making, and then if I look for the shapes that the highlights are making. So everywhere the sun's hitting it really bright, I'll look for those shapes, and a lot of the times they're just rectangles with the lines kind of askew, and then I'll look for the shadows, and you know, plot twist, most of those are just little skewed rectangles as well. So once you're kind of blocking in and you're playing Lego with your shadow and highlight rectangles, things will start to pop out a little bit more dimensionally for you and will make it look like buildings. You'll start to see things recede, you'll start to see things pop forward, and it doesn't typically matter when you're working loose. If some of your planes are a little off, don't bother with the guidelines, don't bother getting your ruler out. We're not architects, we're not designing bridges, but I will just encourage you to look for the shapes that the shadows and highlights make. It's a great way to help you get the depth on those planes that can be quite intimidating to look for.
Are we sure it's the last time? Sure that this is the last time?
What you're seeing here is a time lapse of a very loose, gestural, emotive watercolor piece. It's very loose, and one of my biggest problems that I have is that I overwork a lot of stuff, and I really want a loose and expressive piece at the end of it. So I saw this lantern in the vines and I thought, I want to draw that, I want to capture that, so I had to approach it just as loose as I wanted it to come across, and I think the result was exactly what I was looking for. So I'm going to leave you with that tip. If you want something to be expressive and carefree, you kind of have to approach it that way.
Starts to shake with you all weekend, but we're caught in a landslide, so we stay up to the morning light.
A few items I find almost essential for me when I'm doing this type of thing, besides pens and pencils, are a watercolor palette and some water brushes. The watercolor palette, as long as there's a few good mixing colors in there, I find that just having a few half pans and an Altoid tin would suffice. But if you really want to go extra and team with the theme, if you know where you're going, you could curate a little custom palette for yourself to use there. And even if it doesn't contain all the colors you need, you could always just choose an abstract color palette to work with that day. Also, water brushes, and the ones I'd recommend are the Tim Holtz, the Detailer brush, and the flat brush. Detailer obviously for the details, and the flat brush because when you're doing a lot of environmental sketching, there's a lot of flat planes, and you really do need that flat edge to achieve that angular look, but also to cover a lot of space quite easily.
We fled out the back door, we ran towards the city lights. All the city lights. Still not used to all this concrete. Abandoned cars in the outskirts where we sit and eat. We sleep in the backseat.
Another pro tip, take it easy on yourself. Again, I cannot stress this enough, but this is drawing, this is supposed to be fun, you're supposed to enjoy the experience. So if you've been drawing a lot of one type of the same, and you need to break it up with a simple doodle, just do it if that makes you happy.
Okay, we've done enough sitting down and drawing. Now we're gonna take a real challenge head on, walk down this street of Carsland and sketch whatever pops out to me as we walk down the street. Steve's gonna help me.
Okay.
Here we go.
Let's do it.
Oh no, we don't need another warfare, warfare at the door. Oh no, we don't need another warfare, warfare at the door. Oh no, we've been through all this so many times before. Oh no, we don't need another warfare, warfare at the door. Just like an old elephant, we're going back to the start. Find a place in the shade. Oh, in the shade.
As the sun sets over California Adventure and my day comes to a close, I'm just going to leave you with a few of my final thoughts on the day and why I think this is important. Now, I had a few challenges, very normal challenges like getting started and, drawing buildings. It is difficult. And then a few other challenges that kind of took me by surprise. I'm a very social person, but it did kind of rattle me a little bit when I had a lot of people engaging with me and trying to look over my shoulder. Obviously, if you're a very shy person, to go somewhere as densely populated as Disney is not for you. But I'm not that shy. I'm relatively social. I don't have a problem engaging, but it did just kind of highlight that there's still a lot of sensitivity I have around, things not being perfect or things not looking great. That did kind of click over for me today. So it was just something interesting to note. Walking and drawing at the same time, big problem I had through Cars Land. I think it had a lot to do with the fact that I didn't have something to lean on, so I think a clipboard might be handy for next time I try it. But I just wanted to leave you with this thought. Now, some of us know exactly, what I'm about to talk about, and some people have maybe never thought about it before, but there is something that you've probably been thinking about in this way for a while now, and maybe this has struck a chord with you. It might even be urban sketching for you. But you've always been thinking like, oh, would I be good at that? Could I do that? I wonder if I could do that. Whatever you're thinking about in that way, I want to encourage you to just dip your toes in the water. Just know where you stand so that at least you know that much. For me, I've looked at so many people urban sketching, I've looked at so many beautiful journals, and I've always wondered, could I do that? Could I ever get to a place where I could do that? And I never tried it. So I'm trying to gauge my ability off of no practical experience whatsoever. And it's not until you actually start doing it that you can at least know where you stand, know how far you've got to go to where you want to be happy, you can set some realistic goals for yourself, and then kind of claim victory over some of these things that are just a fantasy at the moment. So whatever that is for you, if it is urban sketching, I hope that this video kind of helped you get started with that. If it's not urban sketching, whatever it might be for you, I don't care when you do it. I'm not going to be your accountability buddy. I'm not going to check in on you, but I think you should do it. I think you should at least dip your toes in the water to see how cold it is before you decide that you won't go in. And I'll leave you with that. I hope you had a fantastic time watching the video. I'll show you a few close-ups at the end and show you the stuff that I took to the park and the stuff that I ended up using. Hopefully that will give you a bit of clarity on how much you don't really need. But until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Okay, I'm finished. I have drawn tons. I have a lot to look back on for inspiration in the future. I would love to try this again, possibly in Disneyland.
Yeah, it's great.
There's lots over there to have a look at too. I feel like I didn't even scratch the surface of all the things I could have sketched today, but just kind of took inspiration from whatever took my fancy, and now I have some great drawings to look back on. It's fun to exercise a skill that you don't exercise very often. Steve's just like... So we're going to enjoy the rest of the night. Hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.
Slipping out the back door, but it's not what you're made for, and there's nothing that is too late